Hey everybody, this is Shawn. Real quick, just wanted to say this episode was supposed to come out a little while ago. Ran into some technical issues with the audio, and I don't want to throw the website under the bus, but it was totally their fault. My entire audio was lost. So that's a problem when you're interviewing someone like our great guest in today's episode. So I had to recreate it and did the best we could. And so the results are a little sloppy, but forgive us, and I think you'll still enjoy this chat. Thank you.
Perfect.
Hello, this is Shawn Harwell. You are listening to the Never Heard of It podcast. I am joined today, as always, super reluctantly by
reluctant hero Craig Moorhead. Never Heard of It is the podcast where we talk about the movies that have fallen through our cracks and other things that may relate to your cracking needs.
That's right. And not only do we have an extra crack with us today, but it somehow feels appropriate given the fact that we're talking about a movie that deals with a man's inner demons literally coming out of his anus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say this one actually kind of feels like a perfect last episode in a way. Like this was where we were always headed. Yeah, what else was I going to say, Shawn?
Well, I think you were going to say, Craig, that you can find us online, as always, at neverheardpodcast.com and listen to all of our episodes. And we've had some great chats recently with a bunch of guests. And you can go there to see all of those things. You can subscribe on iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. And you can find us at all our social places. We're on YouTube, Instagram, etc. So come say hello.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, you can just go on the internet and there we are.
We're always there. And what are you going to say next, Craig?
Here's what I'm going to say next. Today, on Never Heard of It, we have a very special guest in the form of a young man named Brian James O'Connell. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, fellas.
Well, it is a pleasure to have you. And those of you who aren't familiar with Brian O'Connell, you should be, because if you listen to our episode with Bob Hardison, where we talked about the James Franco movie, Child of God, Brian directed Angry White Man, the movie starring Bob and written by Bob. He also directed Killer View before that, and most recently, the indie horror comedy Bloodsucking Bastards, which we're going to talk about a lot. So, writer, director, actor, improv guy, hot dog maker. I think he is a seamster, not a seamstress, and a musician. Yeah.
Only of the penis.
Great. And if you haven't seen Bloodsucking Bastards, I mean, that's going to lead us to our movie today, which is another horror comedy of sorts.
Yeah.
And Bloodsucking Bastards is out there on Showtime. I know I watched it online through Amazon and Showtime. And where else can they get it?
You can get it just about anywhere. My cousin Butch, who works for the State Department, lives in Burma right now, and he just watched it with his whole family. It's on cable. It's on cable in Burma. No excuse. No.
Yeah. They run it every Easter, I think.
It's crazy, too. Last time I was in Los Angeles pitching shows, I was in Showtime and sitting in the lobby with my agent and producer that I was pitching with, and they had like 4 TV screens on, and one of them had Bloodsucking Bastards, and I was like, wait a second, I think I know this.
Shut up!
So we ended up talking about that.
That's correct.
Nobody bought the pitch, by the way, especially Showtime. So,
Well, brilliant. That's all perfect.
It was a good meeting, though.
Hey, I know this guy's film. Great, fuck you. Get out.
Yep. Yeah, it's great to have you in here, because I think you're another one of our many, many guests who have gone to North Carolina School of the Arts, and we've known you for 20 years. And yet, we always kind of ask this question because I do think it's relevant and also interesting, and it's not something that I know despite knowing you all these years. I would love to hear you kind of talk about how you got into film and kind of what led you to at least look at it as an education possibility and something that you were interested in and going to college for, and then beyond that, the transition that you've made to become, now a director, and it's a really exciting thing, and I think, that this last movie especially shows a really bright promise, but it's always kind of fun to look where you started. So we'd love to hear about that.
Well, thank you so much. First, that sounds so weird because I've known you guys for like over 20 years. I think for me, like coming into film school, I always felt like a little bit of an outsider of the outsiders because all of you boys, I always felt like, guys like, Dave Green and Heath and yourself and all those guys, like knew it always seemed like all of you guys knew that you wanted to be filmmakers, like since you were 4, like you saw E.T. or you saw like Raiders of the Lost Ark or Star Wars. You're like, that's it. Like I was always a musician. I was always in bands and doing stuff. And then right around the junior year of high school, my parents were like, well, you're going to college. And that's just, there's no argument about that. So what do you want to do? And I started looking around. I was like, well, I like to write. I like to do music. I like to read.
Yes.
I like watching really shitty movies like Rawhead Rex and all that. So I was like, I guess. And then that's right around when School of the Arts had just started up doing their film program. And I was like, well, this is close to home. I can stay close to my band. And it also seems to kind of like put together all the stuff that I kind of already like to do in myself. I never thought that I would be a filmmaker. And then I got in, which was even more surprising. And then I sort of slowly but realized I was like, oh yeah, I did like book reports in high school with my friends where we just made a video instead of like writing it out. Slowly but sure, I was like, oh yeah. And after a while I was like, oh no, I belong here. Like 2 of those book reports was a parody of Murder by Death.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, oh, maybe I might be more hip to it than I think. And then after a while, like meeting guys like Craig, I think I hung out with more than anybody else my freshman year. It was me, Craig, Matt Frischman, and Olivia Honeycutt. Yeah. And I was like, oh, maybe I do fit in here. Maybe I belong. And then from there, I was like, well, I'm also here. I can't let my parents down. And then I just got really, really into it. And then us having the movie library that we did, because I grew up, there was a place in High Point, North Carolina, where I'm from called Video Adventures, or it was there back at the time. It's been gone for forever.
That's a good name.
Yeah, RIP Video Stores. They had a great deal called 5 for 5 for 5. For $5, you could rent for 5 movies and keep them for 5 days. And it was close enough I could ride my bike there. And as long as you didn't go into like the red section, which all of us know exactly what that section is.
Movies about China and Russia.
Yeah, the Russian section. Russian to bust this nut. Yeah, as long as I didn't go into the nudie section, they were okay with renting me fucking whatever I wanted. So I got First Blood, Killers Clowns from Outer Space. I mentioned Rawhead Rex before, Maniac Cop.
Nice.
I think just at that point, like the guy that was running the counter was like 16. He was like, "Oh, you want to rent this, little man? All right. You know about this movie?" I was like, "I'll take that too." Yeah, and I think that's right around that time once I got into School of the Arts, I was like, oh shit, I have to really start paying attention. So I went back to Video Adventures, and I think that's when I found Evil Dead 2, and I was like, oh, okay, this speaks to me. Yeah, I don't have to make Raiders of the Lost Ark to be a filmmaker. I can make this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then once we got graduated from film school, it's the kind of thing like you guys all know, like either go to New York or go to LA, or if you're smart like Dave and the boys, you stay in town. Sean Harwell being one of those boys as well, and you make a movie in North Carolina, and then apparently you get written up in a Time magazine.
Right, that's the formula. Yes,
I'll never forget that. I was on a fucking plane. I was by Time magazine before going to a plane so I can read. Because I feel erudite, I guess. And I remember reading that in that plane, and it was like the end of the year, whatever. It was like the number 1 movie of 2000, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Number 2, George Washington.
Wow.
And I was like, oh shit, this just got real.
Yeah.
Green and Company have raised the bar.
Yeah.
When George Washington came out, that kind of made it palpable for a lot of us to see what could happen at that level, and then where that could lead, and that it could happen relatively quickly, which is crazy to think about. I'm also kind of wondering, because I think, we went to a school where the film school was somewhat segregated from the other majors of music and dance and design and production, and then theater. And I think in some ways you stood out, to me at least, in our group of friends, and then just in the film school and the young early days of it in general by being someone who, I was always terrified of having to act in anybody's anything. It didn't matter if you were pointing a camera at me or not, and just felt extremely uncomfortable with the whole idea of it. And yet you seemed eager to do so. You were happy to be in other people's movies and were quite good at it, specifically at being the lead and thing. And I was wondering, was that something that you were into prior to coming into college? Had you done acting in high school? Or where did that kind of come from, and how did that kind of feed into your time there, and then thinking about it, something that you wanted to do? I know obviously you're heavily involved in the improv scene in Los Angeles, and clearly you like performing, so would love to hear a little more about how that developed.
Yeah, I actually was into acting for a long time. Like one of the reasons going to film school is like, well, I also like to act, so I guess I could do film school. And to be perfectly honest, like, I was like, oh, well, if I want to be in movies, I should learn how to make movies. And that first semester of being on campus and watching all of our friends from the drama program, all dressed in their blacks, coming back from class on lunch break, and all the girls are crying, all the dudes are like punching walls.
That sounds horrible.
And I'm like, I'm gonna go see the Great Train Robbery. I guess I made the right decision because that looked fucked. Yeah, but yes. I had some of that. I was a front man in bands for a long time, but like, I actually nearly failed kindergarten. And the only reason I passed kindergarten at the Catholic school that I was going to is because Mrs. Nance, my kindergarten teacher, was originally a music teacher, and the big end of the year production, which was one of those shitty like elementary school where it's like they took the Wizard of Oz and the cat that ran away with the spoon and mashed them up some way for some reason.
Sure, it just makes sense. Yes,
I played the Tin Man and I played the cat, and then I remembered everyone's lines and fed everyone, and like as all these other 5-year-olds get like stage fright, and like I saved the play and she passed me. Nice. And I was like, oh, maybe there might be something into this. But yeah, after I graduated and I stuck around for those couple of years to work in the production office, that was part of it as well, where I was like, all right, I'll use the facilities to record my band in. Thank you, New Foley Studio. And being buddies with all those guys, in your class in '99, I was like, all right, I'll just, I'll act in all my buddies' films, and then I'll have an acting reel coming right out of college when I go to LA. So yeah, it was not hard. And also, let's be perfectly honest, I'm an okay actor. Like, there's only like 9 actors in all of Winston-Salem, and 2 of them were elderly. Yeah. So there's only so many times that you can put old Joe in there. So you're like, oh, Jesus.
I also feel like you got killed a bunch.
No, I got killed a ton.
Yeah.
I think the old joke was I got killed a bunch and Schneider killed himself a bunch. Is how it worked, yeah.
Not literally, of course.
Although in my own, I actually had Brian beat up Nate Meyer.
Oh, God, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
How is Nate Meyer? Does anybody know where Nate Meyer is?
He's a director in his own right. He made a movie called Seagirl Run. Yeah, with Robin Tunney and Adam Scott and a few others a couple years back. I'm not sure what he's up to now, but yeah, he's making it happen, man. I still haven't seen it, mind you, but maybe someday.
Oh man, if only you had a podcast for movies that people hadn't seen.
Well, we'll have him on sometime. Yeah.
I also like for a second here that Craig is being like awfully quiet. Like Craig isn't a good actor because he's been in some stuff.
Well,
yeah, he was great on that '70s show as the lead.
That's for a long time.
This is a 20-year-old bit.
Craig looks like Topher Grace, in case anybody's wondering.
That is a kind estimation.
Yeah. I was more referring to 5 Lines, the wonderful movie that was made on BBC, 5 Lines.
Wow.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what happened after you graduated and left University of North Carolina School of the Arts. And
I refuse to call it that. I refuse to call it that.
No, that's its name. That's its name. Accept it. Move on. No, I remember seeing your first film, Killer View, which I think was officially released in, what does it say here, 2009. I feel like I definitely saw it before then. Our mutual friend showed it to me. And man, that's a super dark and kind of twisted, but very uniquely filmed a movie about a serial killer. And
thank you. I'm very proud of it.
I just remember feeling like like it was something I shouldn't be watching. Like it just has this look about it and this kind of overall dread to it and just ickiness that I think is really super effective. But I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that and like how much, budget and time you had to make this thing and kind of how that movie came together and how it was that you found yourself, making your first feature and how you kind of took the steps to get there.
Yeah, actually, I was inspired. I came out here in 2000 and kind of dicked around for 3 years, which I won't get into why. It's just a sad story. But like I found IO West, which is the Improv Olympic West, is the big improv school that's out here in Los Angeles. Its home is in Chicago. And so I started taking classes there and kind of found my home. Because I had all my School of the Arts buddies out here, but I didn't like really know anybody outside of that. And since we were all sort of the same place where it's like, well, I can't help you get a job. I can't help you get a job either. So like I was trying to spread my wings a little bit. And I found that place. And then right around that time, I met a guy that I was in a sketch team with who wanted to get into producing movies. And he was willing to take out a loan. I was like, okay. And that was right around that time that Foot Fist Way came out, and then Shotgun Stories and Zibiowski's first movie.
Miles Ahead.
Yep. And I was so happy for all of them. And I was like, oh man, I'm so happy for all of my friends making movies. I want to make a movie. I've got no money. How do I make a movie with no money? And I figured, well, horror will always sell, and horror is kind of what I grew up on. And then so I just randomly stumbled upon an article surfing the internet that CVS Pharmacy was coming out with these disposable video cameras. Like you've bought them for like $35 and then you like shot like a 20 minutes of footage on and like turn them back in, and for another $15 they would put it on a DVD for you. So I was like, wait a minute, I started that idea of like, El Mariachi, like he sold his blood to make a movie and
maxed out credit cards.
And like, Kevin Smith selling his comic book collection. I was like, well, there might be something in here that maybe I'll be able to sell it just on the idea of the story behind the story of the movie. For Christmas, my parents were like, what do you want? I want 5 of those things. I want 5 of those video cameras. I don't want anything else, just that. And then me and Mandel sat down, and mostly Mandel, figured out how to hack them by going on different message boards and all that. And so we just figured out that the interface, what they were using was just the same interface as a Palm 3 Pilot. So we just ripped that up and soldered that together with a USB port. And then the next thing you know, we had 5 of those, because Mandel's fucking MacGyver. So each one of those would shoot, like, he got them to shoot 24p, like about 10 minutes worth of footage. We just used them like magazines. Like we bought 2 bricks, and Musco was our AC, and he would take it, shove it in, download everything, wipe it clean, then turn it back. And out of the 5 of those, I shot that in 2004, 2005. Of those 5, 4 of them still work. They're really hardy.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah, and so that's how we sold it, which is the idea of like when we went into, I forget who even bought it now because it's been so long and it's been sitting on the shelf. And the guy who produced it, put up the money for it, is not my friend anymore. We'll never speak to him again.
Oh, one of those stories.
Yeah. You hear all those stories about, and then they changed the ending of my movie without telling me. That guy fucking did that.
That stinks.
Yeah, I had to find out about it because I have a Google alert for my name and all the names of the movies. And so I found a review that I had not seen before. And they're like, this movie is great. It's intense. It's one of the most realistic portrayals of a serial killer. Really well done indie film, except for this last bullshit scene that seems kind of tacked on.
Because it was.
I was like, what the shit? And so that's the way we sold it to Fabrication Films is who bought it. We sold it to them. I sort of, in the movie, they're like, hey, we've seen it, we're looking at that. And then taking the camera out of my pocket and said, and this is what we shot it on.
Ooh, nice.
And that's where they were like, oh, and their eyes lit up. They're like, oh, we can sell this. Like, I've always gotten really good reviews of the film. Of my entire thing of filmmaking, my 2 favorite compliments I've ever gotten on my work was, one, there was an agent at William Morris when my producer tried to go and take it over to them and like sell the idea to them and have them repackage it and remake it with bigger names. One of the big agents over there said, whoever made this movie is socially irresponsible. Which I was like, thank you very much.
That's like a compliment from an agent, just by comparison.
And then the other one was the guy who produced it, a friend of a friend, knew a retired FBI profiler from Quantico. And he sent him a copy of the movie and watched it. And the guy, he said, what'd you think? He goes, this is probably the most accurate depiction of a serial killer I've ever seen on film. And he said, oh, that's awesome. He was like, that's awesome. Can I get a quote for that? For like the DVD box? He said, absolutely fucking not. I never want to meet the person who made this. He was like, woo.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's important to kind of highlight, this is before, the iPhone. So it's not like you could just walk around with a cell phone and kind of recreate this. Look, I'm not even sure you could recreate it today, but describe, just for people that don't know, like what this camera looks like. I mean, what you're talking about is a very small handheld thing, right? Like this is kind of like, there were those flip cams that were very big for a period of a couple years. I think by Kodak was made. It was kind of like that size.
It exactly looked like a flip cam. And Mandel and I are convinced that because of what we did with it, and because we went on and sort of like try to go online and tell like, hey, this is how we did with it on that. Not like about little less under a year later, they came out with a version of the flip cam where you push a little button on the side and the USB is already there. It's a part of it. And they didn't cable anymore. We're like, I bet that's our fucking design. But what are you going to do about it? Yeah, they're just stand up.
So what would they do? Like you turn this thing in, they take the stuff off, then they just repackage it? Do they wipe it, repackage
100%.
it?
Yeah, there's a sticker at the top of it that says, do not remove this sticker. And we're like, whatever. Rip. And it's just the same interface as that Palm Pilot 3. So if you just figure out how to do it yourself, yeah. It's just for tourists at the time when people didn't have phones that had cameras on them.
Yeah, I mean, it almost, thinking about it, and again, it's been a little while since I've seen it, but the look of it, like you guys almost managed to make it look grainy. Like I think of it as like Super 8 or Super 16 or something like that. Is that a fair description?
Well, the way that the way that Mandel did it is that, like he said, he hacked it, made it look like 24p. It looks like someone. It's half Mandel and then half Heath Michaels, who was the first AD on it, but also did a lot of a ton of post effect stuff on it. So between the two of those guys and doing their work, it looks like someone really took the time to light 8mm well.
I also think it's just refreshing. I mean, I feel like Craig, maybe we've talked about this in a mini episode or something. But like, it seems like with the proliferation of digital cameras and digital cinema, like it just feels like it's become easier to get a very good looking film, a good looking image, especially at a low budget. And I don't know, I just find myself, whether it's nostalgia or not, but I'm like, no, I miss that. Like I miss the grit and the imperfection and some of the, seeing the budget, the lack of money shine through. I mean, I kind of long for movies to feel dirty again in the visuals.
Yeah, let's dirty it up a little bit. Let's
yeah, not everything has to look like Terrence Malick.
Hell yeah.
Well, transitioning from that a little bit, let's talk about your work with Bob Hardison on Angry White Man and kind of how that came about and sort of how you found yourself directing this movie that he had written and that Brian Mandel, the cinematographer, was also producing and I believe sent to you. And, Bob had a ton of great things to say about your work, specifically with him as a very new and fresh lead actor among some, formidable cast there. And I'm just if you could tell us what it was a little bit like making that movie and just how terrible it was working with Bob.
See, Bob does. I listen to the podcast with you guys and Bob completely undersells himself. Bob is a good actor. Bob was in a little film called that Marshall Southern made back in school called Good Things Cost Money, and Bob has a very small role as a sports car salesman, which is very Bob, but he steals that fucking movie, man. I've never shown that movie or seen it shown to anyone where they didn't laugh and think like that guy's hilarious. I got that job because Mandel shot. Brian Mandel shot Killer View, and then he was working out with Bob. And so it got to the point where I think the way that Bob told me is that Dave Green was the one that suggested Bob play the lead, where he was like, Bob, you're not going to find anyone to direct to do this role the way that you want to do it because it's you. Just do it. And so they got that. Yeah. He and Mandel both were like, all right, well, I shouldn't write, direct, produce, and direct star. Like
that's a lot for anybody.
That's a recipe. Yeah, it's a recipe for disaster. Also, it just doesn't look good on like on the poster. It's like, oh, written, directed, starred, and edited, like by this guy.
It's a little ego driven. Yeah.
So Mandel, not only because Mandel and I are best friends from school and all, but also he worked on Killer View with me. He was like, we should go get O'Connell. We trust him and we like him, and he's good at it. Like, I just did this movie with him. So they called me up. I remember this because it was the day before the Super Bowl, and he was like, hey man, do you want to, like, me and Bob are trying to do this thing. Would you be interested in directing it? I was like, fuck yeah. Like, yeah,
Right.
I mean, we lived together in college. Like, hell yeah, you're my best friend. I was like, yeah, I mean, send me the script, obviously. And I read the script that night. And of course, I laughed hilariously because we all have the exact same sense of humor. One of my friends out here who only knew me from comedy scene out here saw that movie. And she was like, why did you write it under an assumed name?
That's amazing.
I said, what are you talking about? She was like, Bob Hardison. What is that? I was like, no, that's a real person.
Yeah.
He wrote it. She was like, oh my God. I was like, yeah, we have the exact same sense of humor. And so I read it, and of course it was great. And then the next day, I'm watching the Super Bowl at my buddy's house, Sean Cowlick from Dr. God. And Mandel gives me a call, and he's like, hey, what do you think? I was like, I think it's fucking great. When do you guys want to shoot this? I can't wait. And he was like, oh, we're thinking like April. I was like, oh, this year?
You need to start pre-production like now.
It is February. He was like, yeah. I was like, all right, let's do it. That was pretty much how it is. And we hit the ground running. Mandel's just fucking magic. That guy Bob put a ton of work into it as well, but Mandel just gets things done. It's kind of magical how that is. Like, I mean, he got Matt. Do you know how he got Matt Berry?
No, why don't you tell us?
You guys talked about it a little bit when Bob was on, but yeah, they were watching the IT crowd, and he was like, it'd be good. This guy. And then Mandel just by hook or by crook found out who his agent was, sent him the script, kind of like heard a little bit back through email of like, well, we actually are trying to get Matt to do more stuff in America because they thought he was going to be the next Ricky Gervais. And why he hasn't been, I don't know, because he's incredible.
He's great.
So it's like, and it was sort of, it was like, well, Matt is also fancies himself a musician first and an actor second. So since there's music in this, we'll see what he thinks. And then Mandel, just because he hits the fucking jackpot, he called back to talk to the agent. He was like, actually, Matt's in my office right now. He's reading the script. He's about 30 pages into it. And in the background, Mandel says all he heard was, tell him I think it's hilarious. I'll do it. and that was it.
Nice impression.
We already had Scoot through Bob because Scoot had done Bob's first movie, Marcus, and then Matt got us Steve Agee because they became friends when they did the Sarah Silverman show, and then Agee got us Mary Birdsong, and then I brought in Genevieve because she was on the team that was our cast, and it was like, hey, we have some fucking names now.
That's awesome.
So that's how that's all came together. But Mandel got Steve Agee because he realized that when you Facebook request someone on Facebook, when you friend request someone on Facebook, when they say like, hey, do you want to add a message? There's no word limit to how long that message is. He copied and pasted like 3 pages
just wrote a novel
into it. And he was like, oh, fuck, Matt's doing it? I'm in. And Agee's great because Agee's super funny and nice, and Agee knows everybody.
Yeah, I saw he's like best friends with Ellen Page, isn't he, or something?
They're writing partners,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, let's talk about Bloodsucking Bastards a little bit because, again, I just really enjoyed the film, and you could feel that it's very small, and I'm sure you didn't have a ton to work with, but
18 days.
Well, what a good cast you have here. You have Fran Kranz from Cabin in the Woods. You got Pedro Pascal from Game of Thrones, Joey Kern, Joel Murray, Emma Fitzpatrick, etc. And all, really good performances there. And I know, at this point you've got a comedy feature under your belts. You're working in improv in Los Angeles. How did you approach the directing of the actors in this movie specifically when there's a lot of effects work to cover? And I'm sure, just your basic coverage that you had to get. Did you find that you had time to improvise? Or how did you approach directing the actors in this film specifically?
85% of that movie is scripted. It feels improvised because it's kind of loosey-goosey. I kind of direct... In a weird way, I kind of direct like an AD. Like I kind of know what I want already, and I kind of see it all in my head from having that from having that editing degree. Thanks, Jeff Stern and Phil Linson. But also I am used to directing improvisers and stuff, and so there was this back and forth where I was like, hey, let's do 2 or 3 takes. Let's get what's on the page, make sure that we know that we have it, so we get in the editing room. And all these guys are old pros; they've been doing it for a long time. Joey Kern and Joel Murray and those guys have been in 1,000 movies.
Yeah, the Burbs, man, for the love of God, the Burbs, classic.
Come on.
Yeah.
I was like, and then we'll get that, and then I'll give you 2 or 3 to play for yourself. And without fail, it's very rare that we did more than 4 takes. Like, we got it, and then we got some more fun of it. Yeah. I knew we were in good shape because 2 reasons. Number one, Joey Kern is a joke machine.
Yeah, that guy was great.
He probably added. He probably added 3 or 4 jokes to the script a day where he was like, hey, what if I did this, man? What if I put my hair up in like one of those binder clips? And I was like, yeah. But I know when we were really good, like when we really set, is when at one point Joey Kern and Joel Murray came up to me and were like, and Joey was like, hey, Joel has this idea for the scene where I stab Dave with a pencil. I was like, all right. And Joel was like, I just think maybe he could say Yippee-ki-yay Ticonderoga. And I was like, that's funny. Right. But also the fact that like, when you have actors writing jokes for other actors in scenes they're not even in.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy. That's rare.
Yeah, it means obviously they're having a good time. It was pretty smooth sailing, and we got very lucky that everyone like got along real well. There was a good chemistry, and about 3 or 4 days in, I think Fran and Joel came in a little bit later, just shooting schedule wise. But I think Fran and Joey kind of all like they were and Emma all kind of figured out because they had been in a ton of movies before. They're like, oh, this might actually be good. This might be something. Let's protect this. Let's take care of it. And so that was very lucky for me because again, 18 days.
That's crazy.
Is what we shot that.
That is nothing. Jesus.
All right, what else? Holy water, garlic. Oh, I make a really good 40-clove chicken. But we probably don't have time for that right now, guys.
Sunlight, that burns them up.
Wait. Does it? Because, I mean, it's daytime right now, and they don't seem to be too bothered by it.
Correct. But that's because this facility has a limited number of windows to minimize visual distractions and maximize climate control and security.
You're telling me sunlight does kill vampires, but we get so little of it in this fluorescent shithole that they're just fine? Good God, that's depressing.
Yes, sir, it is.
Well, man, I gotta say, I mean, I was really, really impressed by how well the movie builds and the pace of it, and then just the effects and the stuff. You get to see the jokes, you get to see the action. There's so much blood in this movie. It's fantastic. It's fun to see all that stuff, and you feel it. It has impact. It has weight, and it has a purpose. It feels like to not only support the plot but also the comedy of the film, which I think it's lost a lot in movies that are in this sort of like hybrid genre here. And I do kind of wonder about the budget here and the constraints of trying to do a movie that has this many pieces and parts to it in 18 days again with what you had to work with. And can you talk a little bit about the difficulties of that in trying to let's put comedy aside, but just trying to make a freaking scary movie with murder and death and gore with what you had to work with? I mean, obviously, I'm assuming it's quite a bit bigger than what you had on Angry White Man and certainly Killer View.
Well, it's definitely a bigger budget than I'd had before, but it's not as big as you think it was. Without breaking my arm, pat myself on the back, one of the things I've kind of been good about is that I'm able to make something of quality that looks like we spent more money on than we did. Like when I told them, because we shot Angry White Man on 35 millimeter, and Mandel makes it fucking beautiful, and we called in all of our different favors and all that kind of stuff. So when the Fortress Features guys who owned the property and had teamed up with Maybe This Year Productions, well, I think I got that backwards. Maybe This Year Productions had the property and Fortress Features had the money, and then one of the producers, Colleen Hard, knew us, Dr. God, and so brought us in sort of as a work for hire. So we first it was a pre-existing script that this guy Ryan had already wrote. And so, we came in, they were like, it had been through a couple different directors. That's how, there's nothing wrong with the script. It's just how the movie business works, Yeah. And so she was like, I think these guys are good, because we were kind of one-stop shopping. Justin Ware is a studio approved screenwriter, and he's sold movie scripts to studios on pitches alone. And then Sean Coward was part of that Emerson Mafia. He had been part of all that, and he was the technical director at IO, so he knew all the different stuff. And then obviously I had directed movies and gone to film school, and Dave Park and Neil Gargiulo had produced a bunch of television and all that kind of stuff. So we all kind of had all the credits, and so they kind of came in, wanted to meet us, see if we would get along with them, and then they were like, hey, well, do you want to, in good faith, read the script and kind of come back to us with what you think your take on it would be? And we came back, they were like, oh god, that solves a lot of the problems that because we were too close to it, we couldn't figure out. It kind of went in a couple more spaces, a couple more stages, and figured out do I want to dance? Should I lean in for the kiss? That kind of thing. And I think what put them over the edge is that we were like, well, if we should probably watch what Brian's directed, if we're not just gonna hand him the keys to direct this movie. And so we gave them Angry White Man, and they came back and they were like, this is brilliant, this is great. And then they were really happy with it, and I was like, thank you, I appreciate it. And when they asked us what we made it for, and I told them, their jaws dropped. They were like, we thought you made this for $1.5 million. I was like, fucking not even close.
We wish in our dreams.
And so the Fortress guys, who are also known for making movies that look good on a budget, that was it for them. That was the final stamp of approval. So we went into a process of sort of divide and conquer. In the very beginning, me and Sean Cowig would meet up at my apartment. We would write all during the day, and at 6 o'clock we would turn it over to we would send it off to Justin Ware. Justin Ware gets up really early in the morning, and me and Sean bartend at night. So Justin would write from 6 a.m. to noon, send us back to it, and then we would either pick it up where he left off or go back, see what he had changed, and then change one line back because we're like, fuck you, that's funnier. But for the most part, that first draft came together in 15 days. Wow. And then over the course of time, Justin did an incredible amount of rewrites that I can't even begin to count. Yeah. And he was up to including writing on set. But I would say our first draft we turned in, I think somewhere around April 14th. We were supposed to deliver it April 18th. We delivered it April 14th. So we were even early on our draft. And then that was of 2014. We were in January of 2014, we were in principal photography, and then a year later, we were at Slam Dance premiering. Wow. It was super fucking fast. Super fast.
That's crazy. Well, just from a writing standpoint, that work shows, that the plot is good. Yeah. You're clear and concise about what the stakes are in the movie, and again, it feels like the jokes support the plot. You've got some good running gags in there, and are these all the kind of things that you were trying to punch up in those rewrites? For
sure, and also structure. I've read a lot of his scripts that would be big budget action scripts, and the shit is just tight. We talk about the time. He's the one that brought it up first. He was like, one of his bars is if you take away all the jokes out of Ghostbusters still works. Yeah. As a movie, and that's kind of the bar that he sets. And he's also been, obviously he's a friend and a peer, but I also sort of consider him a little bit of a mentor in that sense when it comes to writing, because that guy just knows a ton of that shit left, right, and center. And if anything is a B- joke or below, we just don't let it in. Yeah. That's sort of our last thing. We all sort of divide and conquer. If Neil has an idea for a script, then he'll kind of go off and write it, or he'll pair up with Sean, and then we'll come back and they'll deliver us pages and we'll kind of give notes. But the very last thing that happens before we send it out to anyone into the business, to send to a producer or anything like that, is all five of us will sit down and go through it with a fine-tooth comb and a machete and just be like, all five of our fingerprints are on it, and go, yep, that's great, that's a B+ joke or better, and then and only then does it leave sort of the womb of Dr. God.
To be a man in that womb. One day, I hope. No, my question was going to be, what were the movies you were looking at or thinking of going into that?
Yes. Well, I feel like anybody that watches any of my stuff for about 10 minutes will figure out that I'm a complete whore for the three Johns, and that's John McTiernan, John Carpenter, and John Frankenheimer. Sure. I do not belong to that school of thought that comedy is done in the wide shots or comedy only has to be in medium shots. Me and Bob really believe that. We're like, fuck you, man. Let's get some extreme close-ups. Let's get honest. Yeah. I mean, if you listen to the score, there's a lot of Carpenter in there. A lot of people have compared it favorably to Shaun of the Dead and all that. And I would say of the modern directors, like, obviously, you look at that trilogy, it's crazy good. It's just Hot Fuzz is a movie I wish I had made first. Like, it makes me angry. So those guys, but going back to those old movies, like, again, like, say something like Killer Clowns from Outer Space, like, once you get past, like the clown part of it, there's a really, really great part where John Vernon is being used as a hand puppet. And it's really dark and intense, and you just see him, like, lean forward. He's like, "It's okay, Dave. We just want to kill you." And I'm like, that shit like that is what I kind of wanted to hit and find that middle ground of tone of, like, here it's comedy, but also it's scary and it's earned. And one of my big things too is that it had to be practicals. There is very, very little sweetening, digital sweetening in that movie. We used a shit ton of blood.
I was gonna say that was something I was so happy to see, like, because when the janitor van explodes, for instance. That's fantastic, because anybody else that would have just been CGI, I feel like.
No, we did. That was the very last shot on the very last day, and we stuck 3/4 of a stick of dynamite with some old grizzled dude that looks like he belonged in the fucking Navy. And he was like, "Yeah, I mean, I got enough here." And, like, we made an old fashioned, like we kind of like working with Mark Villalobos, our effects guy, our creature effects guy. He and I both were on the same page immediately. We're talking about, like, the original Fright Night, like that kind of look, like those practicals. What's the other one I'm thinking of with the two Corys?
Lost Boys.
Lost Boys, yeah.
Lost Boys, yeah, like all that. One of the first things that Mark said to me was like, "Man, I am so glad that no one fucking sparkles in this movie." And I was like, "Yeah, that's not happening."
Poor Twilight.
Yeah, and then we had the stunt guys. We had the same stunt crew from what's that HBO show, True Blood. Yep. I would say we probably used 2 55-gallon drums full of fake blood, and how you see the end of the movie, without doing and spoiling it. The end of the movie, when you see what the office looks like, that's how we fucking left it.
That's awesome.
We walked off set that way. So we kind of shot it in roughly as in order as much as possible, so that we could destroy things fully without having to worry about rebuilding anything, because we just didn't have the money to.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Yeah. Well, again, I think you just did a damn good job, sir, with this movie and really hitting the balance of the two genres and the tone of the thing.
Thank you.
I think, man, all that blood was definitely worth it. I don't know what the cleaning bill was for the place when you were all said and done. But it is nice to see it, and it leaves an impact. I think it's what you want. I think from this kind of movie is to feel the blood and see that and get messy.
Hell yeah!
Don't even think about it. I will shove you right back on my ass. Yeah.
Anyway, that brings us to the film, which is Bad Milo. Again, mentioned up front, this is a 2013 movie directed by Jacob Vaughn. It's a horror comedy of sorts. It's about a man that learns his unusual stomach pains are being caused by a demon living in his intestines that comes out his butthole and kills people. And the movie was written by Benjamin Hayes, Jacob Vaughn. It's got a pretty awesome cast. Ken Marino, the great Ken Marino from The State. Julian Jacobs, Mary Kay Place. Who else is in here? Patrick Warburton. I'm always wondering if I say that right.
Warburton.
Okay.
Peter Stormare.
Yeah, and then Camille Nanjiani from Silicon Valley. He was in there. Produced by the Duplass brothers, which kind of
I was shocked that they produced it, because it didn't really feel like a Duplass mother. Yeah.
Now, this is a movie that Craig and I had talked about actually before. I know, Craig, you've been wanting to see this for a while now. I think you had mentioned to me that was the first I had heard of it. You know, when we found out Brian was coming on, we thought, oh man, well let's see if we can find something that it isn't kind of in the same wheelhouse a little bit as Bloodsucking Bastards, even though I think they're very, very different. You weren't familiar with it, Brian, if I'm not mistaken, and
Not
it
a word.
seemed like a cool one for us
Nothing.
to land on. So let's get your thoughts on this. What'd you think, Bad Milo? Craig, you want to go first? You were excited, right?
I was excited to see it. Yeah, I mean,
Did it live up to your expectations?
I'd say for the most part, it lived up to exactly what I wanted it to be. Because I also love Ken Marino. I feel like he can really do no wrong. The movie certainly delivered on poop jokes.
The entire premise is a poop joke, isn't it?
Essentially. And then there's a monster, So there's nothing not to love about it, in a way. And the monster's cute.
He's very cute.
I don't know. And I love that poster, man. I want to frame that poster. So, yeah, as far as movies that you wish you had made, this is kind of one I wish I had made.
Oh, wow.
I feel like I've just been lazy. But yeah, it lived up to it for me.
And what about you, Brian?
Yes, I agree with Craig as well. It lived up to my expectations because I grew up on those movies of like Ghoulies and Critters and Nilbog and all that. A little reference for anyone gets it. The three of us get it, and I assume anyone listening to this would get it.
Yeah, I think some of our listeners would get that. They know Troll too.
Hell Comes to Frogtown and all that shit. So I definitely hit all the sweet spots for me, and I feel like it did a good job with the tone, keeping the tone consistent. My thing was that the tone was like, going back before what we were talking about with like Ghostbusters. I think if you take all that stuff out of it, all the themes are really well done and tie in like from moment to moment. Even one of the very first frames you see is getting his stomach looked at, and like all the ideas with pregnancy and fatherhood and the worries. And there's legitimately like some like good dramatic acting that you don't expect in these type of movies. What I wasn't expecting is for it to be so fucking sad.
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
So like the last half of that movie, I think I was watching it with my wonderful girlfriend, who she saw the twist like 2 minutes before I did and called it.
Oh well.
And I was like, well done, boo. But also she pointed out, she's like, this movie is just kind of like sad. Like I feel bad for these people. And I was like, yeah, I'm not used to having this sort of feeling. Like halfway through, I don't go like, oh, that maniac cop was never held as a kid. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't prepared for that.
Right.
But from top to bottom, like would I watch it again if someone was like, oh, what's this Bad Milo? I was like, yeah, pop that on. I'll watch that again. It's a good movie. And I agree with you as well. Like I grew up on the state as well with Ken Marino. Like I've been saying I want to dip my balls in it for 20 plus years.
Daily.
So it's been very rare and few and far between that I've seen anything done by any member of the state that I didn't love.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I will admit my bias, but like I just wasn't prepared to be that fucking sad.
I hear you. And I'll draw a quick line between this and Bloodsucking Bastards. Whereas Ken Marino can he can't not be funny if he's on screen to me. I feel the same way about Joey Kearns. There's really not a moment. I mean, great people in both casts filling them out, but those two people in particular, like if they're on screen, I don't know. It works for me.
Yeah, I grew up on the state, and I've definitely been a big Reno 911 fan. I knew Ken from Eastbound and Down season 4. Great job in that. Yeah. I gotta say though, man, something about this movie just didn't quite gel for me. Like just from the word go, I was not sucked into it, and I think I found myself wishing along the way that it just simply was I wish it was funnier a little bit, I mean, it's one of the rare times in my life I can think of where I'm like, I wish a movie were wackier. But you know what I mean? Right? I mean, it's just so like the tone of it is so weird. Yeah, it's like
Brilliant.
On one hand, he's having this like serious commitment issues and considerations of being a father, and this awful stomach pain, and just watching him squeeze out this turd monster is so painful to watch and everything. But then you've got like the nerdy office mate and who's just completely unbelievable, and Peter Stormare, like I don't know what's going on with that dude. It's like there's a talking parrot.
Yeah. Well, the parrot joke, I am convinced. I remember watching it, and as soon as it happened, I was like, you know what? I bet that is a Peter Stormare improvisation in the moment.
Yeah.
And he fucking forced it, and that's why there's only one insert of the parrot that they use over and over again, because that guy was just like, I refuse to come out of my trailer unless we go to, like, he did it so much that they had to put it in or it would fucking look weird if they cut around it. I'm convinced of that.
I mean, that makes sense, I guess, but even just like his clothes, it was just like, what therapist looks like this? And I don't know. It was a very weird mix of things to me, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, there's things that I liked about it and admired about it, but this movie, I mean, just as a comedy, this thing worked for you, for both of you guys?
Well, I'll tell you what. This was not a laugh fest for me. I'll agree with that. Like,
no, it's not. It's not.
Ken Marino's great. I think there were some weird tonal things where, I don't know, everything seemed fairly normal until they went to the office and said, "Hey, your new office is the bathroom," and there was like little stuff like that. I was like, that seems a little too far. Like, if we're gonna go that far, are we gonna kind of go a little bit further too? And like, I mean, and again, there's a monster who lives in his butt, but yeah, I don't know. So there was little stuff like that. It didn't work for me. I can definitely say that. I don't know. In a weird way, I'm kind of with Brian here, where it's like, it is more like I'm watching one of those old horror movies, where it's like, it's not so much that I'm laughing at it, but like the things I'm seeing are clearly feeding my soul in some way.
Your turd monster desiring soul. Yes.
Yeah. Because I can't turn away.
I mean, I do feel like, if I was a kid, like in middle school, I would love this movie.
Oh God, yeah. Oh, if I was 12 years old and this movie came out, I would show all of my friends. My biggest thing is, like, you talk about, like, I wish this movie could have been wackier. I feel like this is kind of, unfortunately, like when you make independent films and you can only have actors for so many times in a day, I feel like when you see Ken Marino is sort of this through line, and he's the straight man, and like that seemed like him where he like leaves Jillian Jacobs, his wife, like they're crying real tears, like it's almost like that scene is too serious to be in the movie. But then when you see him with Patrick Warburton, who is being a different kind of wacky, and then you see him with Peter Stormare, who's being a different kind of wacky, and then you see him with Stephen Root, who's being a different kind of wacky. All three of their performances are great, all of them by themselves, but when you put it all together, I'm like, is the ass demon the like least wacky part of this movie?
That's true. I mean, I do feel like some of that stuff overshadowed the creature work in Milo, which is pretty good. It definitely, like, it's got a personality and it looks appropriately disgustingly like what I would imagine the inside of somebody's body cavities to look like, I guess. And it's like, I get that there's the metaphor angle of it, and that's kind of tying into the sadder story, but I don't know if I was expecting it just to go on more of a rampage or what, but it does seem like it's just a hard connect for me to make between those two things, of like this murdering butt demon and then like that being the serious thing of this story. But let's talk about specific things. I mean, one of the things I will say, there was one joke that got me laughing pretty good, and it's not even really a joke, but it's when Milo was kind of crawling back up Ken Marino's legs to get back into his butthole, and Ken Marino was just like, nails.
Well, the hardest I laughed was when he came back, when he was in the bathroom, the office bathroom, and the black secretary comes in and says, "Hey, we got the FBI agents here." She's like, "Do you got poop on your shirt?" That made me laugh.
That's pretty
so
funny.
hard.
I'll give you that.
You got poop on your shirt. I was like,
I mean, nobody wants poop on their shirt.
Yeah, because that makes it believable and realistic to me. I also say the first scene where he goes into his office work, I immediately remember saying out loud, I'm like, man, I wish I had that many fucking people in my movie.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I got no extras that I'm just walking back and forth behind the camera every time. They've got like 20 people in that scene. I'm killed for that.
You just needed to put in a turd monster into your movie. Blood-sucking turd monsters. Okay, well, you guys got wrapped up into the sort of emotional side of the story between this couple, Kim Marino and his wife. Like, what specifically in that storyline kind of worked for you, or just
Honestly, like all of it, but especially right around the time, I'll say for sure where it started to really affect me is that scene where like they're crying real tears and have breakup. She's like, "No, you don't leave me. Why? Please don't walk out right now. I just told you I'm pregnant. Why are you being like this to me?" And I get he can't explain. Hey, I've got an ass monster. But he's at the door and he's like, "I'm just gonna go, and it's better for both of us." And then like him in the hotel room, like curling up with him and then watching TV and like listening to her the message and her like, "Just call me, we can talk about this." I was like, this is I don't know how you're gonna get the comedy back, because I've kind of forgotten about the ass monster right now, and all I'm seeing is a single dad with his kid whose mom they can't be with because she's got like a drinking problem. I'm like, is this where the Duplass brothers came in? Is this what's happening?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Sad.
I was surprised. Like, I didn't know where they were gonna go with this butt monster. I mean, like how you wrap that storyline up, and it did make sense. I mean, from a plot standpoint, what they worked out, with the dad and everything like that.
I was convinced here that they were just going to have to kill him. Like, it was just going to be like you kill him and then everything's great. And just the fact that they found more to do with it than that.
Yeah, well, they got around that by doing the old twin magic. Like if I cut off your arm, it hurts me, kind of thing. Yeah. But they set up the sequel pretty well with the ending.
Can you talk a little bit about like having directed a couple movies now, like with actors in different genres and stuff? Like, how would you approach this? I mean, I kept thinking about how they tell Ken Marino to, okay, just you need to basically act like you're giving birth out of you took us back there and to something disgusting, and really like to have the worst possible turd fest of your life right now. Just pretend you're doing that and try not to laugh and fall down on the floor. I mean, how do you even like wrap your head around what you do with an actor for that kind of scene? Do you have any thoughts on that?
To me, I always go back to this is somewhere of like I do this all the time. I teach improv comedy 3 times a week. This is what I do. It's to me, I liken it to because I study something called position play that my mentor Miles Stroth, who founded the Pack Theater, which is where I teach at, he said basically the idea that it's not comedy math, it's comedy truth. He came up with the idea of position play, which is there's basically about 4 comedic scene types in the history of the world, and you're probably going to find yourself in them 99.99% of the time. That's straight absurd, character-driven, alternate reality, and realistic. The whole movie is alternate reality. If this is true, what else is true? Mapping and consistency. But inside of that, alternate reality scenes are the trickiest because it can disguise itself because you can do different scene types inside of it. So I would look at something like the pooping thing as like a character-driven scene where the only things you have to really do there is you have to mirror and you heighten. And the best example of that I could give you is from Dumb and Dumber, and that's Jeff Daniels. That guy, I'm like, you look at that guy on the newsroom, and then you look at that guy at Dumb and Dumber. It's the same actor, and the only difference between him and you is that guy is willing to commit to it and fucking go for it. Like it is impossible for anyone to watch that scene from any nation, any culture, any race, and to just watch Jeff Daniels have an explosive bowel movement. We can't even talk about it without laughing.
It's the universal language.
So that would be mine. I'd be like, just give me your version of that, right? Which I think Ken Marino did a great job where like he looks like he's physically in pain, and that first time when he hits the ground face first and passes out, and you just see the little across and it comes back to him the next day, and like he lifts his head up off the tile and he's got drool there. I believe it. I absolutely believe it. He sold it on me. But if he was kind of like half-assing it or like winking at the camera or being too cool for school, Sean Penn could have never pulled that off. Sean Penn would never allow himself to be that dumb and that big.
Penn don't poop.
Right? I know. I guess. Well, then again, he may, because I'm sure Sean Penn listens to this podcast. You may be very soon be getting a Dropbox account that has a little deleted scene from I Am Sam.
Oh God.
where Sean Penn just fucking shits his diaper and goes for it.
Do you think I haven't done that scene before?
I was doing diarrhea before you were born.
So you're telling me that during the Ken Marino Peter Stormare scene where Stormare suddenly remembers something, he goes over, he picks up an old dusty leather-bound book and lays it out on the desk, and there's an old like wood carving print of some spirit coming out of someone's butt. That didn't make you laugh a little bit?
It looks like a Chinese dragon.
No, I mean, it didn't really. Like, it just, I don't know. It felt like you're suddenly, like, imposing some sort of, like, Gremlins mythology or something on this, or Army of Darkness or something, or Evil Dead. Like, no, it didn't make me laugh. It was just like, this is ridiculous. Why would he have this book? I don't believe it for a second. And what does that mythology mean?
I agree with that.
It took me out, like, that whole scene. Like, I was just waiting for that parrot to maybe go over there and take a big old dump on that book.
I'd just like to give a shout out to the Coen brothers, because give them even more credit considering that guy never said a word in Fargo.
Right, yeah.
Like, that's how good, like, how good of the directors must they have been to be able to sit on that guy. You know, like, watch Bad Milo, watch Constantine, and then watch that movie and be like, there's no way. No way.
No, I mean, and he was he was in Lebowski, he was a nihilist, which was certainly
that's them. Yeah, that's them letting him off the leash a little bit, like him begging them. He was there on the set when when Jesus Quintana's scenes were being shot. He's like, look at him! Look what you're giving John Turturro! Let me do that!
Well, let's talk about, I mean, I do like Stephen Root, like, in everything he's been in, and also Coen Brothers player as well. Just so different in everything.
He's a fucking chameleon.
He's so good.
He's a fucking chameleon. I've loved him for years and years and years.
Right.
You think of him like, you talk about Office Space, but then you talk about the work he did on Boardwalk Empire. You talk about the work, like, one of the first, like, I love the shitty, like, late 80s, early 90s action movies that take themselves too seriously. And one of the first things, because I still have my VHS collection with the girlfriend, is like, oh, God, must you? I'm like, yes. So, yeah, when we were first dating, one of the first things I did to sort of, like, open her up into, like, hey, this is the world of Brian O'Connell, I made her watch the 1993 classic Extreme Justice with Lou Diamond Phillips and Yaphet Kotto and Scott Glenn. You could tell that Pearl Jam had just come out and become very big, because in every scene Lou Diamond Phillips is dressed like Eddie Vedder, but in a different way. But Stephen Root plays the newspaper editor in that movie, and he's in like 3 scenes, and he's in no scenes with anybody except the female love interest, who you've never seen again. So that means, like, even going back to that, I'm like, fuck, even Stephen Root is in everything. Yeah. And he's so good in no matter what he does. Great. He's incredible. He's really good. And, like, you could probably name 5 other movies he's been in. We'd all be like, oh shit, right, yeah. I love him.
Where was he in Bloodsucking Bastards?
He was one of the blood splatters. The guy's range is incredible. Who's the guy that who played the fertility doctor?
Oh, that's Steve Zissou. He's on that.
That's who that is.
Togetherness.
Yeah, that guy's in everything too, and I'm always a big fan of his.
There at the end. Okay, so we had the little flash forward thing at the beginning, and then we jumped back 123 hours earlier, which that was one thing that kind of stuck in my craw a little bit. So you get to the end, and it's the whole dinner party. You didn't know there was a dinner party at the beginning. Now there's a dinner party. So Poop Monster trying to get in. Mm-hmm. Okay, I guess my thing is, so there's a little thing that's trying to get into the house. No one in that house has ever seen before or has any concept of what it is, except for his mom. Mm-hmm. And so the entire dinner party goes out back and stands in the yard while, like, there's a monster trying to break into that. I just kind of felt like, you guys could make use of yourselves. Mm-hmm. I just... That was one thing that I became very distracted by during the climax of the movie.
Considering that the angle that they keep showing you that's supposed to be from their point of view, they can't see the front door. As far as they know, it's just an armed robber or a rapist trying to get, like, that. None of them are calling 911.
There's like 20 of them.
They're all going to die.
Why don't you overpower whoever it is, and everything will be fine.
Craig, Money, Mo Problems, Moorhead. Did it bother you? It bothered me a little bit at the end. Did it bother you that it wasn't a shot-for-shot remake of that film? Like, obviously you have the extra footage to reveal that the mother is there as well and that, but there were certain shots that weren't the exact same as they had done before, and that sort of that annoyed me.
No, absolutely.
It's not cute. It's not cute like how they did it in Pulp Fiction, where I was like, oh, that's different things. And it's supposed to be a little Rashomon-y. I'm like, you have the same footage. Just use the same footage.
And not to continue tooting your horn, but probably the biggest laugh for me in Bloodsucking Bastards was the reveal that Frank was right beside Joey. What is it? I mean, that shit worked so well.
Yeah, it's a great sequence.
Thank you. I am very proud of that, and it's every time we screened it, that has always worked. The little the montage.
But it is.
And it's so dumb and simple. It's just a pan to the left.
But I was just thinking about how that clearly took planning. You were thinking about how it was going to work ahead of time, and that's kind of why the flash forward at the beginning of this kind of stuck in my craw, as I was saying before, because I felt like it wasn't planned that way. It felt like it just wasn't planned to be that way. Because there's not a payoff that the mom is there. It's just sort of like, what? It was sort of confusing in a way.
Right. Well, it set the tone of the movie, as in, like, it definitely set me up to expect something that was a little more on the horror side. I think just, it looks like he's definitely running away from something that's going to kill him.
And I think that's why they did it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was expecting a little bit more, somewhere between, like, Gremlins and Reanimator. Like, whereas I was going to be like, whoa, which I didn't have a lot of those, but that's fine. The ones that we did have, I thought were legitimate. I thought they were legitimate, like, shit moments.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of interesting you bring up Gremlins, just how much the eyes of Milo, at the very least, kind of resemble the Mogwai.
I said that out loud at one point. At one point earlier on, I was like, Mogwai. Well, I think the creature design of Milo is just was perfectly spot on. Yeah, it's like someone what are those little like collectible dolls that have the big heads that they make of everything?
Oh, the Funko thing?
Yeah, Funko. It's like someone took the baby from dinosaurs, made a Funko out of it, and then blew it up 2 feet, and then
and gave it wrinkles like your intestines.
Exactly.
Yeah, covered in like weird anal seepage.
That's exactly what I'm
and there is, I will say, there is a sense to me here that Bad Milo was never really going to just go off the rails.
Yeah, definitely not. No,
that makes sense.
No.
It was going to stick to this thing. Like, it wasn't going to get really crazy past, however crazy it got. Like, it wasn't,
right.
Yeah, Jillian's not dying. Like, the wife is not dying. I think you feel that all the way through. Although that would have been, what a great fucking left turn, 180, right 20 minutes left in the movie. Milo just comes in and he just rips her fucking throat out, and they're just like whoa!
Like, what is the lesson of this movie? Like, you will be controlled by your stress, and that will be the king of you. Yeah.
You will be like your father.
I mean, I will say, there was a moment where I was genuinely kind of concerned that they were going to go the direction of having Milo, cut her stomach open or something when he found out that she's pregnant. I was like, Jesus.
Or they'll raise Milo as their baby.
I think Craig and his wife could pull that off, right?
Well, we've been down that road, so.
I thought I was being dark and bringing it up. I was like, don't bring that up. And then Craig comes right back with the left cross. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, Craig just dropped our subscription numbers from 10 people to 2. So thanks, dude. Thanks. Well, let's wrap this up. I think this is a very specific movie. Obviously, if it sounds like something you're interested in, you probably should check it out. It sounds like we're maybe mixed on this a little bit. I don't know that I would say it's a big recommendation from me. I mean, I think pieces of it are interesting. Again, tonally, it just didn't quite click for me, and was hoping for more comedy. But it's on Netflix. It's there if you want to check it out. What about you guys? What do you think?
I would recommend it. I think it's really well done for what it is, and it gives me those nice warm fuzzies from back in the day, growing up watching those type of movies. Craig?
Yeah. I definitely recommend it to the right person.
Sure.
Great way to put it.
I would love to have a behind the scenes of the Foley work. I'm hoping that wasn't just library sounds for every time you took it down.
No, they recorded those definitely on set. Yes, it was very real method acting.
Yeah, I saw that. But and I'll also say, it's always nice to see a practical puppet.
Oh, for sure.
Right there.
Yeah. So, Brian, man, thanks so much for coming on. But you got to tell us what you're getting into next. What's in the pipeline?
Well, I'm still just doing stuff with Dr. God, drgodcomedy.com.
You're coming to North Carolina, aren't you?
That is correct. Yeah, it's for many years I would come to the North Carolina Comedy Arts Festival at the DSI Comedy Theater in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I've been off the last year or two, just making movies and doing that stuff. But Zach Ward, who runs that place and is a dear good friend of mine, has brought me back to do some more comedy. We got some TV shows and maybe a couple different movies having up. By the time this comes out, it won't be a big deal. But in the last 6 months, Dr. God has sold and lost a pilot and sold and lost an animated pilot. So we're that's fine. That just means we're getting real close.
Yes.
There's just cracks in the
I
ice.
can sympathize in your rejection.
I know you guys do. But the next thing I'm going to do, like I said, I'm teaching over at the Pack Theater in Los Angeles. I produce a bunch of the shows. I book about half the shows on the schedule. I have a lot of help. I'm not doing it by myself. We have a lot of really young, hungry, talented kids who are going for it, and the people I work with, like Miles Stroth and Emily Candini, Eric Moneypenny, Sam Brown, Bill Posley, Matt Lieberman, Heather Ann Campbell. Like I'm very, very lucky, grateful to be working with those guys. And the next thing I'm working on, I've been working on this script idea for 11 years, and I finally cracked the nut. I'm going to do the first draft this next 2 months. It's a Dr. God feature, which is an action comedy set in 1987 and is sort of an homage and love tone poem to all those Lethal Weapons and Die Hards and stuff that we grew up on. So
awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking very forward to that.
Can't wait. Well, it's awesome stuff, and again, great job on everything that's happened and where you're at right now. It seems like you're in a really good place and coming off a good flick.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, sir.
We really appreciate you coming on, and we'll look forward to seeing it all.
Thank you, brothers. I really appreciate it. Too long, man. Too long.
Yeah, it's been too long.
That's for sure.
As always, you can find everything we got over there at neverheardpodcast.com. Check out Bad Milo on Netflix. Check out our social links. Come say hello. Craig, you got to have some wisdom for us on the way out this week, right?
The only person you can ever truly love
Yeah?
is yourself. I'll work on these aphorisms. I have.
Well, maybe we should just say bye. Thanks again for everything, Brian. Thanks for coming. Thanks for listening.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Bye.